In our family, we have conversation around financial literacy and financial awareness. At the age of 12, you open a bank account and start your first investment. Your parents and grandparents understand, rather than giving you money for a birthday, we give you half up for a birthday and we put the other half into some type of interest-bearing or revenue-generating investment.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Dr. Cedric Howard, visionary leader in higher education with over 30 years of experience transforming institutions and mentoring future leaders. Dr. Howard is also an author of Freedom, Step-by-Step Guide to Wealth and Financial Independence. So, Dr. Howard, I told you I like to keep the intros brief because I think your version of your story will be better than anyone else can tell it. So first, thanks for being on the show today. Thank you for joining me. I'm very excited to get to talk.
Thank you, Jason. It's my honor and pleasure to join you today.
And I think we're over 400 episodes. You might be the first person with the bow tie. So I am very excited to now have had a guest with a bow tie. Feel very underdressed, but I do really appreciate you being here.
Please, the bow tie is part of my why,
Yeah.
and I think that is relevant. Growing up in the southern part of the United States, Georgia specifically, my grandfather wore a tie every day. And now this is interesting because he was a handyman and actually worked for the state of Georgia at the Youth Detention Center. But even in his uniform, the moment he would get home, he would put on a tie. And so just growing up under that influence, I realized it was just a sign of respect because his mindset was, if you look good, you feel good. And if you feel good, you're going to do good. And so I've just worn a bow tie throughout my life, in homage and respect to my grandfather.
That's amazing. That's an amazing start to this. So let's from there. Let's hear more about you, more about your background. Kind of tell us your story. Got you to what got you to where you are today, and we'll just we'll have a conversation.
Yeah, I think in simple terms, it is like any other rag to riches kind of story. I went from welfare to wealth. And it was kind of the why and the how of how I've become today. So everyone kind of sees Dr. Cedric Howard and they see me in various capacity as a content expert, as a leader in education and author and all those things. They didn't know me, at the time of kind of my journey. And I was born into poverty. I was born into government assistance housing. And my mother had a plan. It was the first time that, my life, she wanted to kind of change where she was because she was perpetuating that cycle of poverty. Another single woman, and you can go back, prior to me, you can go back 6 generations of having the firstborn out of wedlock. And my mother had a plan, and her goal was that by the time I became 1, that she would have moved out of her mother's house or place. It wasn't a house, it was an apartment in what we consider to be the projects. And, she would be on her own. She would have her own apartment, and she wanted to change to kind of my trajectory. And she was able to accomplish that. And, she went on to have a long career in the paper industry. But for me, it was establishing a goal. And so in my entire life, she always told me that you have to do things differently than the rest of our family. You have to, take a different path. And that kind of came to hit for me. I was the first in my family to graduate college. And on that day in June of 1994, that changed the trajectory of my life and the generations, to come. And at that time, my maternal grandmother, who played a primary role of raising me, along with my paternal grandparents. My father wasn't still in my life, but his parents definitely were in my life. Especially, my paternal grandfather was, my first mentor. He was my father figure, and of course, why I wear a bow tie today. But in June of 1994, when I graduated, my grandmother came to me and she says, "Baby, I want your gown." Now I'm 6'4". My grandmother's about, 5'1", and I said, "Grandmother's gown belongs to me. I've earned it." She says, "I'm going to tell you one more time. I want this gown." So I took off my gown and I put it on her, and it draped her. Because she was a small, petite woman. And she called all of my cousins into that gown, and she said, "From this standpoint forward, this is the expectations of all of you. No more kids out of wedlock, but most importantly, I want each of you to bring me your graduation gown." So we can't say we want you to go to college. Now, the terminology in our family is, when are you going to graduate from college? And very fortunate that all of my cousins, with the exception of one, has at least one college degree. And for that one, he's actually a college senior as we speak. So he would graduate, and that fulfills the mandate that my grandmother placed on my life, and really kind of serve as the trajectory of how I view life. That, she had a purpose. And, also what she said in there is, she was a very spiritual woman. And, she quoted, she says, "I want my family, and I want Cedric, I want you as the oldest grandchild. I want you to set the standard. And your job is, when I'm gone, to make sure that 1 Timothy 5:8 is how our family is living, moving forward." And 1 Timothy 5:8 just simply says that you have a mandate to take care of your own family. And that if you don't take care of your own family, that is the now of your own faith. And you're viewed as an unbeliever. Now, that's a mantle that was placed on me at 21. And of course, some 34, 35 years later, that is the mandate and mantle I live with even to today. And that became my why.
Yeah, that's amazing. A lot of pressure, I guess. Maybe as a young person, you and your cousins to have that, sort of place, but also I think very inspiring and motivating to just have, like, hey, that we're gonna change. We're gonna change the past. We're gonna break out of that cycle, and we're gonna, do that by being college graduates. So it's, I mean, I love that. I love that story. I love that your grandmother sort of took everybody together and did that. I think that's, you know, having mentors in our life, whether it's, family, coach, business,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, like, those are so important for future success. So, um, so you did it. You went and took that college degree, and kind of tell us about what happened from there. I mean, what was the path from that graduation day to kind of where you are now, and what you're teaching people at this point?
Yeah, so my undergrad degree is in social psychology. And I thought originally I was going to be like a probation officer or counselor at a youth detention center. Matter of fact, my senior internship was at the youth detention center that my grandfather had worked for close to 4 years. I went back to serve as a counselor for that, and I realized that, I needed to go further upstream. And I realized that if I was going to make a significant difference, a significant collective impact for my community, I needed to change some things. And that for me was to go upstream. And so I chose education, and went and got, my both master's and doctorate in education. I actually have two doctorates, one in higher education, also one in Christian counseling. But then I wanted to just make a difference and impact. And I was very fortunate to now have been in higher education now for 31 years. 28 of those years I've been a college vice president. Every award, every type of level of success that I've garnered has been really because I've tried to create an environment where I'm always giving back, realizing that my mandate over my life is to build and enhance communities through education, through awareness, and then use higher education as a vehicle for social mobility. That mother that gave birth to me at a young age actually went back to school in her late 40s, and she became the second Dr. Howard in our family. And of course, I have two adult kids, and they're doing extremely well. One is her mid 20s and graduated college at 16, medical school at 21, and is a urogynecologist. And her younger brother, I consider to be kind of the slack of the family. He has a college degree and serving in our Navy on a submarine. So everybody's doing well. But what I would say to your audience is um, what I consider to be the three P's. Understand what is your purpose, and your purpose should be personal. How I look at my life is I realized that my birth zip code was not my end destiny. My birth zip code gave me the grit, the persistence to realize that I can overcome any challenge in life. And the second P is what is your plan? For me and my family, it is college. It is some level of post-secondary education in order to enhance your skills, whether it is a trade or a college degree. We want to make sure that you have a plan that is going to change the trajectory of your life. And then the third and most important thing is what is the promise? And the promise for us is generational wealth. And so as a family, when we convene, it is how are we building wealth? Because that's really what my grandmother was saying, if you're going to provide or you're going to take care of your family, back then in June of 1994, when she passed, who's going to take on that mantle of providing for the family? And that was the mantle that was passed to me. Later on in life, I would pass it to others, but making sure that things are taken care of. And that's through generational wealth. You have to have a plan and a purpose that will extend beyond you. And that's the mandate that my family lives. And so we think as a collective unit. If we want to buy a house, we have a cousin who has a real estate license. As a family, when we travel, we own a travel agency, and we have someone in our family that takes care of that. We sent someone to law school to review all of our contracts and so forth. Of course, my daughter's in the medical profession. And so as a family, we think as a cohesive collective unit.
So maybe this ties in very well to what I was going to ask you next. Um, your book, the education that you're giving at this point is around just that, right? Financial freedom, family, legacy, wealth, that kind of thing. It sounds like that was essentially the focus nearly right from the beginning. It didn't, that wasn't something that evolved later for you. That was really kind of the focus from, call it day one when grandma said that this is the family mandate. So what do you tell people? How do you, I love the concept of kind of working towards it as a family unit and having these specific roles, if you will. So how did you, it sounds like college is one part of it, but what are you teaching people? What is your maybe starting point? That's probably what most people need is a starting point.
So in my community, the Black and African American community, we don't have a positive relationship with finances. And so we begin with understanding what is the role of money and finances. And do you understand the relationship you have with it? Is it just to get you stuff? Is it just to buy more stuff? Is it to give you a better quality of life? And I began with starting just with that. Remember, my background is social psychology. So I go to what are the four pillars of every person's personality, which are what are known as the HABES. What are your habits, your attitudes, your beliefs, and your expectations? If you can address those four things, then you can understand how a person thinks or a group of individual thinks, and you know how to correct it, to shape it in some way, shape, or form. What are the habits that we have? So in our family, we have conversations around financial literacy and financial awareness. At the age of 12, you open a bank account and start your first investment. Your parents and grandparents understand. Rather than giving you money for a birthday, we give you half up for a birthday and we put the other half into some type of interest bearing or revenue generating investment for you, so that when you turn 18, you have the ability to pay for your own college if you want to, but you have a set of funds that have become your foundational funds, and then we write you into our family trust at the age of 21 and begin to educate you. So, just some things to do. What are your attitudes? Do you want to have an attitude where you want to live a life that is free to do whatever you want to do? So almost all of my family have what we call a W-2 job. They all go to work. They all have a W-2 job, but we also have a wealth building side. And so the family aspects is wealth building side. So our mindset is that we're building and working not for our kids, because we got direct responsibility for our kids, but how are we building for 2 and 3 generations down the road? And so we make decisions with that in mind. And then what are your beliefs? Do you believe that you deserve this? Because success is not for everyone. And that is certainly the case. I mean, we've been doing this now for over 30 years. And there are people who, especially who have joined our family through marriage, have said, hey, I don't like this lifestyle. I don't like the fact that you all think and you all, have conversations about, purchasing homes out of your own, rather than going to the bank, you give a loan to your, family member and they pay back into it. I don't like that. I like this, to have my own autonomy. Well, this family is not meant for you. And then, last is, what are your expectations? Our expectations is 2 Timothy 5:8, that we're to provide for our own family, our own households. That is the foundation of our faith. That's the core that keeps us all together. That is our driving North Star. Because that was the mandate that was provided to us, from my grandmother, who's no longer with us. But her legacy is that she's established a set of expectations that would last for generations to come.
The lack of financial literacy is uh, rampant, I guess. If you, I mean, it's just everywhere. And so, but I mean, you said something that just struck me so immediately, in that you said, at 12,
Yeah.
the family members open a bank account and we have conversations around this and all of that. In I mean, I often think about how to approach this stuff with my own kids, and they're 6 and 3, so not quite there yet, but we talk about some of the stuff at a high level, and that wasn't how it was for me growing up. We didn't have money. It was, we moved every year to a new apartment because it was maybe a little cheaper than I don't know. We were just constantly in that I don't know, I guess, chase for making ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
And for much of my life, I operated in, I guess, escape mode from that type of lifestyle.
Or a place of scarcity, because you were trying to just make ends meet.
Yeah. But even when I had reached a point of actually making money, and it was still like, it took me actual, like, active work and educating myself and connecting with people like yourself, like, to change how I thought about and saw money. And still, I mean, you mentioned that, someone marrying into the family, like, sometimes it's still stuff that with friends, longtime friends, like, we just don't mention it when we're together, that what I'm doing now, because the people are very uncomfortable talking about money and looking at, what can you do to create that generational wealth. And it's funny, because once you once you believe and understand and sort of buy into that mindset of abundance, you want to tell everybody and like in a way to help, but then you can be met with a lot of opposition. But I think that talking about it at a young age and having it be a part of normal conversations within the
Hmm.
family, like that's the answer. And
Yeah.
it's so simple. Like it's so simple, but I think most parents and adults are not equipped to have the conversations. Like they've never had the conversation themselves. So how do you then have that conversation and direct your children how to, kind of be in a better place? So I mean, first, it's phenomenal what you're doing in helping that, helping change that
Hmm.
mindset and that
Hmm.
scarcity mindset. Where would you, like, if you were to approach someone, family? I
Hmm.
mean, where
Hmm.
would you start with them? What would,
Yeah.
because that's something that I often feel as someone who's like excited about investing. I feel like
Yeah.
sometimes I go straight to, look, you can make all this money by investing, but then I feel like that's probably almost like putting the cart before the horse in a lot of
Hmm.
instances. So I'd love to kind of get your take on, I don't know, like the approach
Yeah.
to really kind of helping people.
So I think you must begin with being very authentic in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't approach things from the perspective of, or my conversations with individual or those that are close, dear to me, don't approach it from the perspective of this is what we have. Which we approach it from the perspective of, okay, do you want to have a better quality of life for you and your family? And if you do, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to undertake? And we're comfortable with saying this is not an easy lifestyle. But when you look at us and people realize that we're very humble, but we're very rigid in the system that we have implemented as a family. All family members know as a part of the conversation is okay. As a friend, are you ready to analyze your budget and be honest with yourself? And your goal is, as a part of this, are you willing to live within 50% of the money that you bring in for your needs? Because 50, 30, 20 is what we live off on. 50 for necessity, 30 for desires, and 20 for investment. That's an honest conversation. You're not going to get there overnight, but are you willing to do that? Secondly, are you willing to engage in wealth building activity? Wealth building activity means that you have to take time to do three things. You have to be willing to learn, you have to be willing to unlearn, and you have to be willing to relearn. And what we mean by that is, yeah, you've learned certain things, but you got to be willing to learn a different mindset and a different language. But then you got to unlearn the expectations and behaviors that you've already had. And then reteach yourself how to think from the perspective of someone who is wealthy. Poor people want money to buy stuff. Middle class want money in order to have status.
Mm-hmm.
Rich people want to have money in order to show stuff. Wealthy people want to invest in things that's going to have purpose. And so, what are the purpose of what you're going to do? And that kind of drives our conversation. We have a seven step internal program that I have not put in a book, and that's because the family hasn't given me permission to do. But it starts with just those things when you begin to analyze just yourself, and look at your own habes, and embrace your own habes from that perspective, and really, leverage what are your strengths and your skills. So we don't force everyone to go down the same path because we don't need everybody to do the same thing. Whatever your interests are, our job is to facilitate you becoming the best version of this if possible. And so, if your interest is that you would like to, become a caterer, okay, well, we want you to go to school. We want you to go to culinary school, but we also want you to go and get a business degree because you got to run a business. And we're going to facilitate that with you. Remember, we invest in you, so you're going to invest back into the family, or you're going to invest in the friends, your friends. Are you willing to do that? And so, because that's a purpose for us, and I give you a wonderful example of this recently that occurred to me, Jason. And this is why I kind of wrote Freedom, because when most people read Freedom originally, if they, oh, this is going to be, a book that tell me to buy this product and that product, and then they get it and they was like, man, this is really a step by step guide to help me. I said, exactly. And so in early March of this year, my mother had assembled a group of leaders in my hometown of Macon, Georgia. And she said, can you just come in and just do a financial literacy workshop? They've been reading things and they want you to come home. And I said, okay. And they said, well, how much are you going to charge? I said, no, it's free. I just want to come home. I just want to impart this knowledge. Okay. So, because if I do this right, it's going to have cascading effects. And so we originally opened it up, and I came in, and it was supposed to be for 50 people, and 42 people showed up. And these are 42 people that are leaders within the city of the community of Macon, Georgia. And it was supposed to be 2 hours. Didn't charge them anything. Flew myself in, flew in some other people to kind of support what we're doing. When I left, they were stunned. So 2 weeks ago, my mother called me and said, hey, I'm over the citywide initiative, and they would like for you to do a citywide conference on financial literacy. And I said, okay, don't mind doing it when you want to do it. She told me when she would like to do it. And I said, okay, let's do it for 200 or 300. Literally yesterday, my mom called me and said, we've opened registration, and the facility only holds 300. We have 300 already registered. Now, the event is not for another 4 months. And so I said, hey, I don't care if we need to do multiple events. Now that people understand that I'm not asking for money, I just want to impart wisdom and information and knowledge to my own community. That's the most important thing. Now, the reality for me is when I did the event, I literally can check my book sales, and I sold 1,482 books from the 47 people that came to that event.
Yeah.
So, if I would have charged something, fine, but now they're beginning to understand, the importance of that I'm trying to help them build legacy within their families, and really Freedom is a step-by-step guide to help them to build their own legacy on their own terms. They can't replicate what we've done because they didn't have Mary Lewis, who was my grandmother, to serve as that spark. But they can replicate their own version of that. And to me, that is much more powerful for my community than anything else.
Yeah, of course. You started that with, you said the first question you ask people is, what are you going to give up? And I think that's, I don't know how to, I don't know how to adequately explain to people that is the most important question. Like, you will not create generational wealth by not giving anything up. Like, there's no way. So it's just an important, like, and I think that's what you mentioned that earlier. Like, this isn't for everybody, but like it's hard to do. It's hard to do. It's also worth it. Like, it's just, and you're not giving up something forever. You're not giving something up for, for your children. This isn't like an eternal thing, but you do have to give some stuff up in the beginning. And that's probably been, I mean, I talk to investors all the time, and it's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely interested. And then you follow up with them 2 weeks later and like, I decided to buy a new car.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. You made your decision, but like you very much just show what is your priority in life. And that's, it's hard to get to that place where you understand that the sacrifices are worth it in the long term because you don't see those results right away. But I think that's where these conversations, starting at such a young age and being able to really kind of instill that that mindset early on, become so important. So I wanted to highlight that. I mean, the success of that event and future events is amazing, but I imagine you start a lot of those events with a similar type of question to the audience: is what are you willing to give up? And it is just a very, very powerful question, and realizing that, what you're getting out of that initial sacrifice is huge. So I think that's being an example, is kind of the next piece of that, being an example to them of like, this is what we give up, and this is
Yeah.
what it has done for us over time. So it's kind of
Yeah.
just remarkable. I love that
Yeah,
story.
great perspective. No, I as a young kid, and up until he passed, I used to play chess with my grandfather. Now we played thousands of games of chess, and I've never beat my grandfather in chess. Checkers, I could beat him, but
Yeah.
chess, I could never beat him. And I never forget, I was around 15, 16, and I said, Grandpa, I don't like playing chess with you because I can never win. I think I'm going to win, and you always checkmate me. I read books, I can never win. And this is something he told me that really changed how I viewed this. He said, to you, it's about beating me. But for me, it's about the quality time that we spend with each other. So stop getting competitive with someone that can help you. Realize that the temporary discomfort is worth the long term gain. So because I know you're fighting hard, I'm actually teaching you a lesson. Because if I really wanted to, I can let you win, but you would not have learned the lesson. And in life, this is the only thing I know I can beat you in at this point in time. And so I make you temporarily uncomfortable to make you grow in ways that I can in other situations. And that's kind of like how I view life. Sometimes pain comes not to make you give up or give in, but it's to create that uncomfortable environment. So that sacrifice is the temporary discomfort to have long-term gain. That is when you're doing stocks. That's when you're doing investing. That is when you're doing stock auctions. Anything, there's going to be a learning curve, and that's going to be that uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
That you have to go through in order for the tension to occur, in order for you to grow.
Yeah. For me and my grandfather, that was golf. I
Oh,
still can't golf. Still can't golf. Never could golf. But anytime he wanted to go, I would go. And
yeah.
I have a very competitive side to me, and it was really it was really humbling to be so bad at it and have him, even into his 80s, just I still couldn't compete with him. And but those 2, 3, 4 hours on the golf course
Mhm.
together, like, didn't matter. It didn't matter how bad I was. I just got to spend that time with him. So I think that's yeah, also a very, very powerful lesson in that, we don't have to win to learn. We don't have to win to learn, and most of the time we actually learn more by losing. So it's definitely I love that. I love that perspective. And
Yeah.
yeah, those are the things that our elders can for sure teach us. And that's the willingness to absorb that lesson, I think, is pretty it's it's way better for you than it is for them. I think they're really doing you a favor by doing that. So
Absolutely.
great story.
And you and I have learned and became successful because we have had those mentors in our life. Not just family mentors, but entrepreneurs and business mentors that were hard on us because they were trying to make us uncomfortable and break the psychosis of our minds, and that what psychologists and medical professionals refer to as scotomas. It's the blind spots. It's things that we don't see that make up who we are. To break those things in order for us to grow, and ultimately to reach our potential.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, well, Dr. Howard, I want to make sure I get the chance to ask you a couple questions that I ask every guest, and
Mhm.
you've touched on this already. The name of the show is Know Your Why, and I always ask every guest, what is your why? And we talked about the bow tie. I love that piece of the story, but I did want to give you a chance to expand on that answer if you like, if there's more you want to add to it.
Yeah, I think, what drives me and what allows me to have what amounts to, from many people's perspective, two complementary, very successful careers. Because my 31 years in higher education has been extremely successful. Also have had a consultant business that I run, on behalf of my investment into the family, and ultimately our family organization, for 35 years. For me, my why, just to be honest with you, Jason, is that I fear letting my grandmother and others down, because that fear is what drove me to be success. And I wasn't afraid of failing, because when you're afraid of falling or failing, then you become a failure. I realized that my successful journey meant I had to learn how to fall, and to retool and to readapt and to grow. And so my why is, that those people who before me, who have paved the way, who've given me the opportunity to be the first in many things in my family and in my community, I owe it to them, in order to go back and offer a hand up. And this is what I do and why I do, the things that I do, because things get difficult. Things get very frustrating. And I realized that their journey was much harder than mine. And that my temporary discomfort is nothing more than a setup for my future success.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. When people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out? Where can they find you and hopefully gain even more of your wisdom?
Oh, no, thank you. So you can always reach out to me on various platforms: LinkedIn, TikTok, Facebook. I am Cedric B. Howard. And just always look up Cedric B. Howard and you will find me. Connect with me in any type of way. People oftentimes shocked when they reach out, and even my website, cedricbhoward.com, they put in an inquiry or a note, and I respond. So all my communication, I respond directly to. And because to me, I think it's important to let people know that you're taking time to reach out to me. I take time, daily to respond to people. So it may take me 48 hours or 72 hours, but ultimately you get a response back from me directly. So as always, you can reach out to me on various platforms, Cedric B. Howard.
Okay, great. We'll have that in the show notes too, so people can connect with you. Dr. Howard, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate what you shared and your perspective on something that I think is incredibly important and passionate about. So I think that this will really resonate with the audience, and hopefully we can get lots of people to connect with you. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure. And just a closing remark, I would just say the greatest struggle you have to overcome is the one within yourself. And so when you win the battle of your own self and your mind, you can achieve anything that you set out to. You set yourself up to achieve. So remember, overcome the battle of your mind and you can achieve great things.
Folks listening, make sure you connect with Dr. Howard, and please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. As always, thank you so much for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?